Welcome to the New World Order Showcase Podcast. Your host, Jill Hart, the Coach's Alchemist. Couldn't be more excited to have you join us today. On this podcast, we celebrate the champions of change, the up-and-coming life, health and transformational coaches who are fearlessly stepping forward to make a difference in the world. Get ready for inspiring stories, practical tips, and powerful moments that will motivate you to make a positive change in your life and those around you. We're happy to have you join us on this incredible journey as we dive into the world of life, health, and transformational coaches who are lighting up the path towards a better tomorrow.
Hi, and welcome to the New World Order Showcase Podcast. Today, we are speaking with Debbie Sodergren, and Debbie is an energy body spiritual healer. She's written a book called Just Be, Path to Meditation and Awareness. Welcome, Debbie. It's so nice to have you on the show, and I'm looking forward to learning all about your tips and tricks to keeping sane.
Hi, Jill. Thank you for having me. Yeah, this is fun. I've been looking forward to this interview. So any way that we can help stay sane in this crazy world, why not, give these new tools a try?
Yeah. So what is it that you do? How did you get started? Tell us all about you.
Okay, sure. So I can tell you all about me. I guess I have to start when I was 4 years old. And I had open heart surgery twice. And it was during the second surgery that I had an out-of-body experience. And I remembered it. And I kind of squashed it because I tried to fit in with my friends and really couldn't talk about, the experience to the point where even at night, I would leave my body and do a little bit of traveling around. And I would say things to my grandparents like, oh, I saw you got up at such and such time at night. And it just wasn't good. My parents were just kind of taken with that. So, you really shouldn't talk about those things. So I didn't. So I just kind of squished them and just moved on, trying to fit in and be normal like everybody else. And it wasn't until after a few traumatic experiences as a young adult where I finally decided to integrate like this piece of me. And it wasn't until I went and saw a psychic at the age of 19, and she told me like about my future. And I thought that was interesting. I wrote it down, didn't think much of it until years later, when I was pregnant with my first child, I remembered that I had this tucked away, and I went to look for this little note. And I don't know if you had these growing up, but when we graduated high school, we used to get these from the furniture company. We used to get these little cedar boxes. And it had like a key in it. And I had locked it in there. And I found the key and I opened it up. And in there was what the psychic had said. And I married somebody with the initials of SS. I was living south of the location of where I was living. She went on to predict that I was going to have 3 children. I did have 3 children. So it was I thought it was really interesting at the time how she had predicted this information. And that is a stepping stone that opened me up to really listening to my intuition and figuring out how I was going to integrate this going forward. And for me, going to college, I tried to just go to a college that was accredited, and really they didn't have what I was really interested in. I kind of took a lot of psychology classes because that was the closest thing to it. And during one of my classes, at the end of class, the instructor had said, I also, teach a class on, I have a school and I teach classes on metaphysics. And if you're interested in learning more, come up and talk to me after class. And so that intrigued me. And I went up and talked with her after class. I was taking my time putting stuff away, and I happened to be the only one to stay late. And I went up and I said, yeah, I'd like to hear more about what you're talking about. I ended up going to her school for 6 years. I took everything they had to offer, and they graduated me. And from that point, I continued on my own. I started looking at other different energy medicine techniques. So this was in the 90s when I was going to the college. So it was by the late 90s I was done, graduated from the college. I went there for 6 years. And it was after that that I started going to workshops like at Yale New Haven when Dr. Bernie Siegel would come talk, or Dr. Norm Shealy, and just kind of have conversations with them about, hey, what do you think about these things? So that was how my journey started out. And then I gave up my career to be an at-home mom because it was my dream job. Both my parents worked full-time, and it was the hardest job I ever did. And it was the most unappreciated job, meaning from society. It didn't build a 401k for me. It didn't build Social Security for me. People would say, if I went to file my taxes, oh, you're a housewife. And so I would get angry at that. And I figured out what I was a manager of domestic affairs. I looked at what did I do in the working world, and how did I transfer that over into family life. I managed a lot of schedules. I got people where they needed to get to. I made sure like there was food in the house was cleaned, the laundry was done. So there were a lot of different things that I would delegate, but I managed it. And so calling myself a manager of domestic affairs felt like I was giving myself respect for the position, the very important position that I was doing. And in the process of all that, I had moved out of state to another state. I was there for a few years and then moved back with my family. And in that process, I was downloaded the information for my first book, Just Be Your Path to Meditation and Awareness. And I wrote the book, and I would teach it to I was a Girl Scout leader. So a couple of my other moms in the group were interested in learning. And so I was able to test it out on them. And then when I moved from that location to a new location, I got in touch with the Adult Ed Center, and I started teaching this at quote unquote night classes and with adults. So it got me out of the house. It got me interacting with adults again. And I absolutely loved it. And from there, people would come up to me after the 4 weeks were over, and they're like, how can I work with you? And I had no idea how to do this. So I ended up hiring coaches to show me. I did programs to figure it out. And were they the perfect fit? No, they weren't. But I learned something from each of them and took that forward. And I think that's the really important thing, because right now there's this big kick of entrepreneurship in this country. And what I want to say to some of the listeners that are in entrepreneurship, if you're in a program, you're going to glean from that program exactly what you need until you're ready for your next teacher. And then Source will show you who your next teacher is supposed to be. So you have to really trust the process, trust your intuition, trust that you know what's best for yourself. As women, I feel like personally from my experience that I felt disempowered, and it had me questioning my intuition because I was doing things not how society wanted me to do them. They didn't teach what I was interested in accredited universities. That's why I went to a university, a school that was not accredited. Does that mean that the courses weren't rigorous? No, it doesn't. If you looked at some of the courses that I took, they were very rigorous, and I had to write papers just like I would if it was an accredited institution. So I think I'm all about empowering women and a few brave men on stepping back into the femininity of being in this world, because the world is run by a very patriarchal, masculine set of guidelines. And it's worked until it got us to where we are. And where we are going in our future, you can see all around us different things happening, different things breaking down, different systems are being questioned. And so my response to that is, okay, well, that's a normal process. When something comes to completion, it comes to an end, but it opens up a space for something new. And I think with that something new is a lot of podcasting, a lot of women supporting women in order to make sure that not only are our needs met where we're surviving, but it's almost like that next tier of, we don't want to just survive. We want to thrive. And so what does that mean for us? We all have our different levels of thriving, and they're all correct. If we can just take the words wrong and right going forward, take it out of the vocabulary and just understand that we are having these experiences, and these experiences lead us to making different decisions. So you're going to go through an experience, you're going to make a decision. And as you go through the experience, you're going to decide, you know what? This isn't working for me. I need to make another decision to have a different experience. And so therefore, it takes the right or wrong out of it, and it just makes it part of the journey. And I think looking at it from that lens, from that perspective, that neuroscience has shown us where you put your thoughts are what you're going to attract to you. So why not go that route? It sounds much easier.
I have goosebumps when you are talking about the change that it's already happening. It's like there was COVID and everything broke loose afterwards. It was the collective consciousness of the whole world changed after COVID. It's palpable. You can feel it. And where before COVID, we were going down this path that was freaking the crap out of me, honestly. And it was the whole new world order coming into being. I could see it coming. And then we had this global shift in consciousness to a new way of doing things. And that's how I came up with the name, the U World Order, because it is a new world order, and that it is changing, but it's not the way that it was pointing before. It's now pointing in a direction that is much more in line with the divine feminine. Women are being empowered in a way that just, it helps elevate the whole consciousness to a place where there's potential, and people are finding what they're passionate about, what they're gifted at sharing, and they're making the world different. And it's just so exciting for me. It's like so much opportunity to make everything better and to feel good about being alive. Whereas, for a long time, it didn't feel good to get up in the morning, even though you're doing stuff you like to do.
Yeah, well, a lot of people were doing the 9 to 5. I wasn't, because I transitioned from an at-home mom to being a real estate agent for a little bit, just so that I didn't have that 9 to 5 position. I liked that freedom. I felt like I was living a more balanced lifestyle. I felt like I was in my wellness because I was in control of my time on how much I could put into a career. And then once COVID hit, then like I was like, oh my God, everybody gets to work from home the way I do, right? And I think that opened up awareness for people. It was like, hey, the 9 to 5 thing, I could get more done in less amount of time, and then I could still feel good about it and do something else in my family life, in my, do something for myself in my own well-being, and not have to do it before work or after work hours. And then you didn't have to cram it all into 48 hours of a weekend. So I think, yeah, it is a healthier mindset. It's a healthier schedule. It's a healthier way. And I think when collectively, I know just energetically, when 2 or more gather in a consciousness, in the same mindset, it expands that energetic field exponentially. And so that's what the great reset with this was, with COVID, is all of a sudden everybody experienced the whole time-space continuum in a different way, where it was resetting. It was like, okay, so I don't have to do the 9 to 5. And then some people were finding their way, like, I don't function well in my home because my home talks to me and distracts me. So I enjoy the 9 to 5. They wouldn't have known that, and they wouldn't have entered back into it without having that knowledge, because now it's a knowledge of choice and not a knowledge of, oh, that's what I have to do.
Yeah.
Puts a different energy around it.
It's giving people their power back to make decisions that are good for them so that they can actually live their life rather than the 9 to 5 grind is you're not really living. You're going and doing something, you're exchanging your life for some paper, electrical currency these days, in order to go home and live. Whereas now you can live, you can exchange currency, you can have your family around you, you can, you can just like, I get up when I'm done here and go and have a conversation with my family. I could go outside, I can water my garden.
Yeah.
I might have something to do later, come back in. It's not like I'm tied in an office, and even though I don't have anything to do, I have to stay there until that clock hits that magical number of 5, and then the prison doors open and you can go home. And it used to feel like that for me. I became self-employed early on because of that reason. I hated just hanging around waiting for the clock to tick over to 5.
Yeah, I agree. And I think a lot of people have felt that way. And corporations are now starting to listen to their employees. At first when, they considered COVID done, then, okay, the offices are back open, come on back in. And people were like, whoa, like that didn't work for me. Can we negotiate? Can we talk about what's going to work for me as an employee with your company? And they were able to negotiate what would work for them so that they felt like they weren't going back into those prison doors of the work life. They actually were more functioning and enjoyed when they did go in 2 times a week, that they were communicating with coworkers again, face to face, and the ideas were flowing, being in somebody's energy space. That was happening. But yet when they were home in their home office space, they were more productive because they were very hyper focused in what their tasks were in order to get that done. So I think there's a lot of positives to come out of this. And, without being Pollyanna, I don't have my head in the sand. I understand there's a lot of negatives to come out of this too. Our children suffered with it socially. I understand. And I think what I'm doing in my business with understanding, writing a book about meditation and awareness, I think that can help that generation to take back their power and understand you've been so conditioned to look outside of yourself in order to keep yourself movement. There was no balance. There was no balance about being still, listening to what you really want, what's inside you. You were just going along, being led, being told what to do, versus giving you the opportunity to just stop in the environment of the school, taking a moment and just having quiet time, taking a few minutes. That's all it takes. And so they're finding now that some different school districts have started doing meditation in school, and they're finding that they're having less disruptive issues with kids. Kids are taking more personal responsibility. They're actually taking that skill set and they're bringing it home. And then the parents are asking the schools, like, what is this you're teaching my kid? Like, they came home and they're showing me this. I want to know more about this. And I think that is another byproduct of us being able to take back our time, take back our well-being. And we have to do something in starting it in that younger generation.
Yeah, and equipping children to understand how to make these tools work for them, and they are just tools rather than just being indoctrinated with things that are social experiments. Teaching them the things that are the tools that will help them live better and feel better about themselves and be able to deal with the trauma and the disasters that come along in life, because it's life. Things are going to happen in your life that are unplanned and unseen. But if you don't have the tools to deal with them, they can totally derail you. And not everybody's raised by 2 loving parents and who really care about them and work on their well-being and their emotions and are emotionally connected. Most of the world has parents that are disconnected. They don't understand the emotional realities of how emotions work.
Well, and that's as a society, we haven't been taught our emotional meters, especially I think for the masculine. The masculine is so disengaged from their emotional frequency that it's causing strife in relationship when you're with somebody who has an emotional IQ. And so then you need to navigate the conversation and decide if that's something you want to work on together. And so it's, again, there's a lot of different things that go into this, but I think that younger generation understanding that, yeah, we are gonna, life is about this whole experiment of being a spiritual being, having a human experience on the earth plane consciousness is about having experiences that are gonna help you grow as a soul. And so what does that look like? That looks like everything that we've been manifesting coming up to us as quote unquote challenges. To me, it's an experience. And so with that experience, how are you going to grow? Are you going to go by what you know and have a reaction? Or are you going to stop, take a breath, drop into your heart, and have a response? Those are two different things. And that's something that can be taught. Just like anything else with riding a bike, practice, practice, practice builds the pathway in the brain and in the body center so that it becomes an automatic thing for you. You automatically don't get defensive and start and defending yourself. Instead, when somebody says something to you and it's a challenging statement, you stop, take a couple breaths. Even if you put up your finger, notice like, okay, I'm taking a minute. And then you drop down into your heart and then you have a response to it. I think learning that skill at a young age could help a lot of young kids stay out of a lot of bad decisions.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's the whole, it diffuses the I have to be right reflex, or it has to fit in my paradigm reflex. It's like, can I just be curious about what the next thing is going to happen? That's going to happen is, can I just be curious about your statement rather than take it on as an affront? Those kinds of skills, so necessary for all the generations. But if we're going to teach kids something, let's teach them something that's helpful.
Yeah. I'm at that stage where my kids want to parent me now. So and I've got to be open to receiving it, and I can receive it. It doesn't mean I have to do something with it. It just means I need to be respectful and receive it. And so this is a journey. We're always going to be continuing to be challenged to learn, and we're always going to be challenged with a different obstacles so that, did we learn the lesson? Are we going to have a response to it instead of a reaction? Because we're going to keep having that same situation keep showing up in different ways until we finally are able to understand, oh, this is happening again. Okay, I'm going to have a response this time instead of having a reaction. And then, boom, you've learned the lesson. And then, okay, what's the next thing that's going to happen? What's going to open up for me? And I think looking through it, we lose our curiosity as we get older. And that's unfortunate. So I'm just going to invite all the listeners to tap back into being curious about things. Instead of being defensive, be curious. If somebody says something to you and, with political scene, with what's going on, so much division, I just want to invite you to say, when someone says something and it's not something that is one of your beliefs, I want you, instead of being defensive about it, I want to challenge you to ask questions. Well, why is it you feel that way? Well, what do you see in that I'm not seeing? By asking those kinds of questions, it allows you to have communication with the other person in a loving way, in a respectful way, so that then after you've gathered all that information, you can then decide, wow, I never thought of it that way. You bring up a really good point. Thank you for sharing that. Doesn't mean you have to agree with it, but it means you're handling it and giving it a different vibration, a different frequency out there in the universe.
And that is a great tip with the holidays coming up for people to keep in mind, because they're going to go and visit with family, and not everybody is going to see the world the way you see it. And you don't have
Right?
to be right. You just need
Yeah.
to be curious. Just let it unfold as it's going to unfold. And,
Yeah.
be interested. Be more interested in what's going on in other people's minds. And you
Yeah.
never know, you
And
might
with that,
learn something.
yes. Yeah, that's true. And with that, I want to just say to you and your audience, as you're getting together with family, instead of reaching for the glass of wine to calm your nerves, to make you a little more social, or instead of, weed is legal in this country, instead of eating a brownie before you get to the function, whatever it is, eat a gummy, whatever it is that you do, I want to invite you to try some new tools, and I'm going to share them with you today. And one of them, it's a great tool. It's called the solar plexus shift. So as you're having a conversation with somebody, I'm going to stand up. As you're having a conversation with somebody, you're still giving them your undivided attention. But what you're doing is you're turning your body so that your solar plexus, where your emotions are, is not attached to the person. When you change the energy this way, the whole frequency shifts so that it's now pointing in this direction. So you're not plugged into the person. And so when you do that, it helps to de-escalate it and keep the emotion out of it, because this is where you hold all your emotions, right here in your gut. That's why when you're arguing with somebody, you get an upset stomach. It's because that's where your emotional center is. And so I just want to share with you guys, just try doing the solar plexus shift. And kids do it without even thinking about it when we're talking to our children or an adult, and they do this automatically. They're covering their solar plexus. They are protecting their solar plexus.
Like crossing their arms.
Yeah, they cross their arms and they put them in front of their, if you cross your arms right now, they're just below your breastbone, and they fall right at the bottom of your ribs, covering the upper stomach, where your solar plexus is, just above the belly button. And so when you do that, you're protecting your emotions from somebody. So I'm just teaching, and we've always, whenever my kids done that, I've always looked at that as a gesture of defiance. And so I will say, could you please uncross your arms? I don't think you're hearing me. I don't think you're listening. And so they'll be like, oh, they'll roll their eyes and they take their arms down. So it's a little bit of more defiance, but it does change the energy in the conversation with them so that they can receive the information that I'm giving them. And it's a really cool thing. Just play with it. You may not do it all the time, but as you're talking to somebody, hi, how are you? You hug each other and it feels really good. And, you're enjoying each other and you're getting that connection, that back and forth feed with each other in that high vibration. And then all of a sudden, they ask you a question about something else and you can just feel like, oh God, somebody else is going to come in the conversation. And that person has a big opinion about something. You can feel the energy draining. You can just unplug from it. You can just twist yourself and unplug from it, but you're still giving them your undivided attention by looking at them in your eyes.
Yeah. That's a great tip. I'm going to try it. I'm going to try it today.
It's a fun tip. It's easy to do, and it works.
And it's not real noticeable when you do that. I mean, you can just shift easily while keeping your head pointing forward.
Exactly. Yeah. Yep. So sometimes if you're on both feet, an easy way to do it without somebody knowing what you're doing is just to kind of lean into one of your hips. And as you lean into it, just turn the middle part of your body away from them while you're still looking at them with your head, with your eyes.
Powerful. Thank you so much,
really
Debbie. It's really powerful. And just not having to be right about everything, being curious will surely make your holiday season much more merry and bright.
Yes. And the third tip I want to give you and your audience is give yourself a timeout. Excuse yourself from the conversation, run into the ladies' room, the bathroom, and just kind of just put the seat down or not in either run some water or flush the toilet, and just see like all of that stress leaving your body and just leaving, going down the drain, whichever drain you're using. And give yourself space while you're in there. Just do deep cleansing breaths. Just do 3 of them. Just close your eyes. Inhale through your nose, exhale through your mouth. And as you inhale, you're taking in peace and calm. And as you exhale, you're exhaling all of the stress and all of the anxiety of the experience. The body knows what that means because it holds on to it. But as you exhale it and release it, then you're making space for something better to come up into you. You're making space, because if you don't do this exercise, what happens is if there's a lot of strife happening, it builds and builds and builds. You can only take it to a certain point because you can only hold so much in your body. And then all of a sudden, you're going to have an explosion. So it's better, instead of having the explosion, to release these things along the way. So you just excuse yourself, go into the restroom, do your 3 cleansing breaths, wash it down the sink, come back out, and you'll feel so much more refreshed.
And if you're traveling, take time to do stuff by yourself. Go outside. If you're someplace where it's warm, do some grounding, be barefoot. If you have to bundle up, at least go outside and spend some time outside, away from all the people that are foreign to your everyday life, so your body can re-energize and soak up nature's energy.
Yeah.
So when you can bring that back into the collective again, it's a way to keep from overloading, because when you go and visit and you stay with family, it's just like you're always in each other's face, and it's really hard to separate and to take time for yourself. And everybody needs time to just be alone in their own energy, to recharge and to breathe out all of the excess stuff that's coming in.
Yeah, there's a lot of science around when you walk barefoot on the earth, the depleted ions in your body get out into the earth, and then the earth brings up into your body some ions that you need in order to sustain you. And so just like the tree structure sucks up energy from the earth and then runs it back down into the earth, there's a whole mycelium complex going on in there. The same thing happens with you. You're a living entity cohabitating in nature. So go out and connect with nature, get some fresh air in your lungs, go lean up against a tree, go ground yourself. If it's too cold to take your shoes off, put your body up against the tree. The energy will flow through the fabric. The fabric is not the barrier. So don't worry about that. Rubber, unfortunately, the thickness of the soles of our shoes acts as an insulator. So it doesn't allow the frequency to come up through it. It depletes the frequency. It makes it more of a struggle. And so that's why they recommend, going without shoes on your feet. But if you have a leather sole shoe, that's a lighter leather sole shoe, then the frequency can come up through that, because that's a natural product. It's a product of the earth. The rubber is not a product from the earth. It's a man-made material, and it's blocking your system. Just what, anything plasticky, if you're drinking water out of a plastic bottle, all of that little bits of plastic that's in there, if it's gone hot, cold, that's being released, and you're going to ingest that into your system. If you keep drinking bottled water like that and ingesting it, your body's going to build up a toxicity in your body. And all of a sudden, you're going to have a breakout of some sort. And so it's really good to do these cleanses to get all those things out of your body. They don't take a lot of work. They're pretty easy to do. And, you can only tolerate so much. And then when you fill up your system and your body can't do what it's naturally supposed to do because it's got too much toxicity, it has an outbreak somewhere. Something develops. And so that's where our dis-ease comes from. We are not at ease anymore. So that's why it's important to be in nature. It's important to figure out growing your own food. It doesn't come from a grocery store. Grow your own food. Get your hands in the dirt and really ground yourself. As kids, we did that naturally. We always played outside. We always were grounding ourselves and didn't know we were doing it. So as adults and the society we live in today, we need to be re-educated on this, on bringing this back as a natural phenomenon to keep us in our well-being. And I know that the Blue Zones book talks about people the centurions that live to be over 100 years old, and like they're in their well-being. There's a lot of different factors that go into that. And if you're curious about it, you want to live and you want to be healthy and you don't want to be on any medications, then I would recommend like reading something that's going to help stimulate you, or listen to some podcast about it when you're out on a walk, or sitting at the beach, or sitting out in nature with your back against a tree. Like there's ways that you can consume information and use up your time. We all have the same amount of minutes in a day. It's just a matter of how are we going to use it? Where can I shift this a little bit? And I know when you're stressed out, trust me, I've been there. When you are stressed out and you're like, this woman, she must have a great life. She doesn't have the stresses I have. She doesn't have the schedule I have.
Everybody does.
You don't know what I had. But in order to get to the life that I'm living right now, I had to make some adjustments. I had to make some changes. I had to put on my oxygen mask first before I could change it for somebody else. And it really occur to me until my husband came home from work one day, and apparently I was behaviorally acting like I was angry. And he finally just said, "Hey, babe." And I was like, "What?" And he said, "Why are you angry all the time?" And I said, "I'm not angry." And I heard myself, and I thought, I need to look at this, like what I'm supposed to be living my best life, my dream job. Why am I angry? And so that was a whole nother ball of wax that we had to go into. But it took me getting to that point. So what I'm saying is listen to some of these little cues that you're experiencing. And I didn't do it alone. I had to reach out and get a third party to help me figure out what was going on, because I couldn't see it. I had my blinders on. And so that was another thing, we make in this society getting therapy as a bad thing. It's no different than getting a coach. It's just an emotional coach. It's a coach on philosophy. It's a coach on what's going on in your brain for psychology. So it's no different than going to a doctor and getting a checkup. But you got to figure out where you're struggling. If you're struggling in your movement, get yourself a movement coach. Get out there if you need to get to the gym. If you're struggling with your emotions, get some support with emotions. Read a book, join a self-help group, an online group. If you're struggling with your spirituality, get some help around that too. So there's these facets. It's body, mind, and spirit. And so with the body, mind, and spirit, it's never equal 33, 33, 33. It's always shifting. And so when you spend too much time in one of them might be depleted. So when you figure out what your balance is in on all this, what the dance is for you, and you can wake up and you're like, wow, this is amazing. I'm so excited for my day. And then you go through your day and you put your head on your pillow at night and you're like, I had an amazing day. I'm so grateful for it. And you can list the things you're grateful for. It's a great way to go put your psyche before you fall into healing your body and getting those hours of sleep that we need.
That's so beautiful and so necessary. Debbie, you give away vibrational tools for keeping energy high for people that visit your website. And how do you work with people? Or do you still work with people?
I do still work with people. Yes, thank you for asking. So for me, what that work looks like now is I'm not teaching in the classroom setting anymore. I now teach. I have the course. I've actually put it into an online course, a DIY course, so that I have a bigger reach. I travel. I belong to a lot of networking groups. I travel around the country. I spoke about the book internationally. So I have a vast network, and I wanted to get this information to people, so that they had it in their hands. And so I now have an online class that it's a do-it-yourself 4-week class. And so I have that out there. And from there, I work with people one-on-one privately. And it doesn't matter about distance because we can do things on Zoom. It's energy, and energy travels. So it's not a big deal. So I'm still doing some mentoring, coaching, working with people one-on-one. And I'm not doing any group stuff right now. I'm still speaking at different events. So if somebody's looking and is interested in having me as a speaker, I have a speaker one sheet on my website. If you're interested in getting my program into your facility, wherever your work environment is, if you have HR and you're interested in talking about that, we can talk about that too. So there's lots of different ways that I'm learning to be available to what the need is that's out there.
That's awesome. And we'll make sure we put the link to your website in the show notes below. Also, is there one thing you want to leave the audience with today?
What else can I leave you with? Just be. Just be. You get so busy doing so many tasks. Stop doing and just be. Like, take a moment and be present. Take in your surroundings, your 5 senses. What am I smelling? What am I seeing? What am I touching? What am I hearing? And how am I feeling with that? Get in touch with that again to ground yourself and give yourself the gift of just unplugging from the busy to-do list and just being present in the moment. You can do that in between events. Give yourself 5 seconds in the car. That's all.
I love that. Thank you so much for joining me today and for sharing all these great tips. I'm actually really looking forward to the vibrational tools for keeping energy high. I'm going to go check that out here soon.
Great. Yay. Well, thank you so much for having me. This has been such a pleasure. And I hope that my intention today was just allow me to be of service, and whoever needed to hear this message will hear it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much for tuning in to another empowering episode of the You World Order Showcase podcast. We hope you've enjoyed hearing from our incredible life, health, and transformational coaches who are making a profound impact on the world. Remember, change begins with you, and you have the power to transform your life and the lives of others. If you want to take that next step and unlock your true potential, visit thecoachesalchemist.com, where you can find the 3 ways we can help you for free to spin your talent into gold with clarity, a system, and a plan. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you never miss an inspiring episode. And if you enjoyed today's show, we'd greatly appreciate it if you could leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. Your feedback means the world to us and helps us reach more people with our positive message. Stay connected with us on social media for updates, behind-the-scenes content, and upcoming guest announcements. You can find us on Facebook at the You World Order, or simply visit thecoachesalchemist.com.